This is the case of the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12 CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys, Ms. Brady, Mr. King, Ms. Nelson, Ms. Higgs, and Ms. Spengler. And the people are represented by Mr. Brockler, Mr. Orman, Ms. Pearson, Mr. Edson, and Ms. Tish McGuire. We are outside the presence of the jury at this time. Just a couple of things before we bring the jury in. One of them has to do with the pictures, some of the pictures that were admitted through the coroner on Friday. It was Dr. Lear Cole. At different points, the defense indicated that they had no further objections or no additional objections to the pictures. So to the extent that the pictures were the subject of amended order D98B, I took that to mean that the defense was resting on the arguments that I addressed in that order related to the risk of unfair prejudice. To the extent that the photographs were not the subject of that order, for example, the photographs related to x-rays, I took that to mean that there was no objection. So I wanted to make that clear because some of the pictures were the subject of amended order D98B, but some of the pictures were not. And I indicated in amended order D98B that I could not provide a final ruling with respect to all the pictures because I couldn't make determinations related to arguments that the evidence is cumulative or that there are other pictures that are less graphic that serve the same purpose. And so I needed to wait on some of those issues until the actual trial to make a final determination. So the rulings in the amended order D98B were necessarily preliminary, but there were some pictures that were introduced on Friday that were not subject or that were not this subject of that order. And so as to those pictures, I'm assuming that the defense's position meant they had no objection to those photographs. The second thing that I wanted to bring up with you is related to some of the evidence that may be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Mr. Brockler said on Thursday of last week that during the next couple of weeks he's planning on getting into some of the mental health area. And there is a limiting instruction that I have to give at times, and I'm going to rely on the parties to tell me when that limiting instruction has to be given. To avoid confusing the jury, if at all possible, it would be nice if you leave the evidence that is subject to a limiting instruction to the end of a witness's testimony so that I can just say, for example, the rest of this witness's testimony is being admitted for a limited purpose, and then read the limiting instruction contemporaneously. If that's not possible, then again, I rely on counsel to assist me in informing the jury when the limiting instruction applies. In other words, when it takes effect and when the effect ends or when its application ends. As I understand the law, the limiting instruction will be along the lines of telling the jury that it may consider certain evidence only as to the issues that are raised by his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, and that the evidence cannot be considered for any other purpose. My understanding of the statutes that address insanity is that there are a couple of different types of evidence that the limiting instruction applies to and must be given with respect to it, and that is, number one, evidence acquired directly or indirectly for the first time from a communication derived from the defendant's mental processes during the course of a court order examination pursuant to section 16-8-106, which of course governs the examination and report the court orders when a defendant pleads not guilty by reason of insanity. And number two, evidence that is acquired pursuant to section 16-8-103.6, subsection 2, small a, which governs the waiver of any claim of confidentiality or privilege as to communications that are made by the defendant to a physician or psychologist in the course of an examination or treatment for such mental condition. So, counsel are on notice that I'm expecting them to let me know when they think that instruction should be given. And again, to the extent that they can plan ahead of time so that the testimony or the evidence that the instruction applies to is given at the end of a witness's testimony, I think that makes the most sense. Is there anything we need to take up on behalf of the parties at this time, the prosecution?
Your Honor, you have something? The court. Your Honor, the court will recall we had a representative from a company called Google come and testify and lay the foundation for a CD that purportedly contains some emails that we would later seek to introduce into evidence. I've got copies of the emails we would like to offer. I have spoken with Ms. Spengler about it. I have copies for her. But in anticipation that there may be some objections to some or all of those emails, with the permission of the court, I'd like to approach and give the court an advance copy so it can do its typical review as it has of the other emails that we've had.
Is there any objection to that procedure, Ms. Spengler? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, what's the objection, Ms. Spengler?
Your Honor, we may address this before or after lunch today.
We may?
I'm asking if we may.
Oh, didn't sound like a question. I'm sorry. When are the people intending to introduce these emails?
Your Honor, possibly this afternoon, if we're able to get through whatever potential objections and arguments that there are. If not, we'd try it after we could do it, probably tomorrow.
All right. And Ms. Spengler, you haven't had a chance to review these emails, or?
Your Honor, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've reviewed, I think, a majority of them some time ago, and I'd like the opportunity to review what's been handed to me this morning in order to make any objections that I see fit.
All right. Okay, we'll do it that way then. I'll give you a chance during the break to do that, and then maybe you could tell me what your arguments are at the beginning of the lunch break and give me a chance to review them during the lunch break. Is there anything else on behalf of the people at this time? Ms. Pearson?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, we are anticipating introducing the notebook, perhaps even this morning. I wanted to bring this to the court's attention that we also made copies, which have been authenticated by Sergeant Files for all of the jurors, and I will be asking that Sergeant Files be allowed to read the notebook out loud to the jury. The reason being is that it's an important piece of evidence in this case for both parties. It's written in cursive writing. It can be difficult to read someone else's writing, and we certainly don't ask our jurors how well they read or if they have any reading disabilities, and I think that it would be probably more efficient for him to read it out loud to everyone and for them to have a copy to follow along. I've already provided a copy of the notebook to the defense, but of course they've had it in discovery and they've seen the notebook anyway. But I wanted to bring that to the court's attention now in case there was an objection so we didn't have to deal with this when it came up.
Is your intent to distribute copies of the notebook and then to have a witness read it out loud, have the jurors follow along, and then to have the court retrieve all the copies of the notebook back, to retrieve the copies of the notebook from the jurors?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. What's the defense's position?
Judge, I have no objection to distributing copies of the notebook to the jurors. I also would have no objection, frankly, to providing the jurors with a typewritten version of the notebook so that it was easy to read and we didn't have any problems with any reading of the handwriting. The handwriting's pretty easy to read, but I would object to the detective just reading the notebook to the jurors I think that it's unnecessary. I think that the exhibit speaks for itself, and they can read the notebook and interpret it the way that they see fit. And secondly, Judge, if the court is inclined to allow detective files to actually read the notebook into the record, I would ask that it be done so simply like that, and that there not be commentary about what detective files thinks the meaning of the notebook is, or what particular parts may refer to in his opinion. But if the court is over my objection to allow the reading, I'd ask that it just be a straight reading, and then the copies be collected from the jurors and we move on. Thank you.
There are parts in the notebook that are difficult to read, correct?
There are some parts that may be difficult to understand. I don't think that they're difficult to read, and I don't frankly think Detective Files is any better at reading them than any of the rest of us or any of the jurors. So that's in part my objection to his reading them, Judge, is that I think that there may, inevitably, he may give some interpretation about what he thinks it means. And I think that the exhibit speaks for itself, and the jurors should be able to interpret what they want from their own reading of it, and not deriving meaning from his inflection or the tone of his voice or the manner in which he reads the notebook. I think that any difficulty in reading part of it is part of what the exhibit is, and the jury is just as capable of evaluating that as Detective Files is.
Ms. Pearson, it's been a while since I reviewed the notebook. Are there parts that are difficult to read, or are there parts that are difficult to understand? Or
There
is it
are definitely going to be
both?
some parts that I would say would be difficult to understand, and I think also difficult to read. Not these days, people don't all read cursive writing, and again, we don't ask our jurors if they have any dyslexia or reading disabilities or issues that would cause them to have difficulty comprehending it. If the court is not inclined to allow him to read it out loud, and I was not going to ask him to provide commentary or interpretation or anything like that with regard to the notebook, then I would ask that we still be allowed to read a few sections of it, and then that we give the jurors as much time as they want to read the notebook in its entirety. I can tell you reading it out loud takes about 30 minutes. I don't know how long it may take some jurors to read it, but this is an important piece of evidence, and I feel like they do need to have adequate time and ability to be able to go through everything that is in that notebook and then to try to understand it.
What about Mr. King's offer to provide a typewritten version of the notebook? You're not agreeing to that, right?
Well, I've never seen one, and we've not been provided that. We'd have to have an opportunity to compare that to this, and obviously you lose something because there's a lot of diagrams in this notebook, and a lot of the words are located next to diagrams, and that provides some of the interpretation or explanation of why he's writing what he's writing. And so these are the defendant's words written close in time to the crime that it committed and mailed, directly right before the crime was committed. And so they clearly have an enormous amount of probative value. But I would object to the juror being given a sanitized typewritten version of the notebook.
All right. Well, there's no agreement to provide a typewritten version of the notebook, so I'm not going to allow that. There's also no agreement to have a witness read the notebook in its entirety, and I'm not going to allow that either. I see this different as the audio tape that was introduced into evidence earlier, because Agent Gumbiner was at that interview, and I think he was in a position to review the transcript and say, I believe this is accurate. This is a transcript that I've gone through, having been there myself at the interview, having heard what was said at the interview myself, and having then reviewed the audio tape and the transcript, I can say under oath that this is, in my view or in my opinion, to the best of my ability, an accurate transcript. So in that case, he was in a better position than other people to say what was accurate and what was not, and to be able to assist the jury through the transcript. But in this case, Sergeant Files is in no better position than anyone else to read what's on the notebook. So I don't think it's appropriate to have him read it. I think you run the risk that he may read it differently than perhaps somebody else might read it. whether it's putting two sentences together when perhaps they were meant to be separate sentences, or whether it's because of voice inflection or whatever else. I don't think it's appropriate for him to read the whole notebook. Having said that, I think it makes sense to give each juror a copy of the notebook, so I will allow that. I think that will make the publication of the notebook more efficient. And without objection, I will allow you to give my staff 24 copies of the notebook so that each juror can follow along. If you would give me a copy as well, please, so that I can follow along, I would appreciate that. And then to the extent that you want to ask Sergeant Files questions about the contents of the notebook, of course, you're entitled to do that, and that's no different than any other exhibit that you may review with a witness, as long as you're not reading the notebook in its entirety and just saying, read it from beginning to end. If you want to ask him questions about different portions of it and have him read different portions of it, I think that's appropriate. If the defense believes that he's reading it wrong or he's misreading it, they can object, and they can also cross-examine. All right? So we'll proceed in that fashion.
And Your Honor, at the end of his testimony, would you then allow the jurors to have time to read the notebook in its entirety?
I will. I think that makes sense, and I think it's appropriate, and it's the most efficient way to publish it, and there's no objection to it in any event. So that's how we'll plan to proceed. Anything else on behalf of the people?
No, Your Honor.
All right, anything we need to talk about on behalf of the defense?
Just along the lines of the limiting instruction issue that the court brought up.
Yes.
That's my understanding as well, and we will do our best to remind the court when we want that instruction given. I was reviewing the mental health litigation in this case over the weekend, and I actually identified two other limiting instructions that may be appropriate. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. There was a limiting instruction that we requested pursuant to the court's order in D-241, which would apply when an expert offers some sort of opinion about Mr. Holmes's credibility or truthfulness. I think that was the instruction that we requested pursuant to the People versus Doxy case, D-O-C-Z-Y. And then the other one was the limiting instruction that we requested pursuant to the court's order D-264A4, that Dr. Reed's statements on the videotape can only be considered for the purpose of allowing the jury to evaluate the reliability of his examination and to provide context to the statements made by Mr. Holmes. So I just wanted to make that record to make sure we were all on the same page.
I'm on the same page. Those are the three instructions that I have here, limiting instructions that may potentially have to be given. And again, I'm going to rely on all of you to tell me when you think one of these, or perhaps more than one of these, needs to be given. You folks are in a much better position to be able to tell me that than I am, because you know what evidence is about to be admitted. I don't know what your plans are. I don't know what your evidence is. I know what your evidence generally is, but I don't know when you're planning on admitting it, or when you're planning on eliciting certain specific testimony. You know that, and so you need to tell me when you think one of these is applicable, okay? All right, anything else on behalf of the defense? No? Ms. Pearson?
Your Honor, do we need a limiting instruction then for the notebook because it was obtained pursuant to the plea of not guilty by reason of insanity?
That would be our request, Judge.
That's fine. I think it makes sense. So that would be the one about you may consider this evidence only as to the issues raised by the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, correct? Yes. And
yes.
Everyone's nodding their head yes. Thank you. All right, please remind me. And the way I would like to do it is to be reminded of it right when you admit the evidence, or right after as you're admitting it, to say, Judge, this would be a good time for you to give the limiting instruction. And then that'll tell me if it's a different limiting instruction, then maybe you can identify it by saying the limiting instruction on the issue related to Dr. Reed's statements, or the limiting instruction related to credibility. And perhaps you can identify this one as the limiting instruction related to the not guilty by reason of insanity plea, something along those lines. That way I know which one you're talking about. If there's an objection at any point about a request to provide a limiting instruction, either because the other party doesn't believe a limiting instruction is appropriate, or because the other party believes that a different limiting instruction may be appropriate, either in addition to that one or instead of that one, then let me know and we will take it up, okay? We'll take it up here at the bench outside the presence of the jury. All right, anything else? No? Before we bring the jury in, let's go off the record for just a moment. Joyce, my real time's not working. No, it's off. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Yeah. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect the jury has joined us again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. Yes. Good. It's good to have you back. The prosecution may call its next witness at this time. Ms. Pearson.
Your Honor, the people call Antoinette Munis.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? You solemnly swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record, and please spell your first, middle, and last names?
My name is Antoinette R. Munis, Antoinette, A-N-T-O-I-N-E-T-T-E, Munis, M-U-N-I-Z.
And you say your middle initial was R?
R.
Okay. Ms. Pearson, you may proceed.
Ms. Munis, in July of 2012, where were you working?
I was working for the Anschutz Medical Center, Mail Center.
What did you do there?
What I did is U.S. Post Office, sorting out mail for the campus.
How did the mail center operate? Was it like a post office?
Yes.
Do you recall on Monday, July 23rd of 2012, being asked to search for a particular package?
Yes, I do.
Tell us what you were asked to search for.
We were asked to search for a certain package, a yellow package. So a coworker and I were searching for this package, and
Did it have a particular person's name on it? Were you directed to find?
yes,
Do you remember who the name of the package was that the package was addressed to?
they asked us to look for the name of Lynn Fenton.
Was that the name of a person that you were familiar with?
Yes.
Do you know who that is?
I believe she was a psychiatrist for the Anschutz Medical Center.
How many people were involved in looking for this package?
8.
And who were the people who were searching?
They were my coworkers.
All people who worked in the mailroom?
Exactly.
Do you recall what time of day you began the search?
This was early morning.
And do you recall how long it took you to find the package?
It took about 15 to 30 minutes, 15 minutes to 30 minutes.
What kind of areas or what did you have to search in order to find it?
We were searching into trays of letters and tubs of mail.
Now, this was a Monday.
Yes.
Is mail delivered by the CU mailroom to places on campus during the weekend?
Yes.
Is mail received at the CU mailroom on Saturdays from the post office?
Yes,
Is your mailroom closed on Saturdays and Sundays?
yes, it is closed on Saturdays and Sundays.
So it's closed on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes,
So no mail is then received on Saturdays or Sundays at that?
correct.
Did you find the package that you'd been asked to search for?
Yes, I did.
You recall what it looked like?
It was about 8.5 by 11 manila folder.
What did you do with it when you located it?
I handed it over to Officer Merciers.
Was he one of the CU police officers?
Yes,
Was there another coworker who was helping you search, who was standing by you?
yes, her name was Abby. She's my coworker.
Did you actually find the package or did she find it?
She found it.
Was she standing next to you when she located it?
Yes,
And when you found this package, did it have a name on the envelope?
it did, yes.
Who was it addressed to?
To Lynn Fenton.
Do you recall if there was a return address or not?
I don't recall that.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Is there any cross-examination?
No, thank you.
And the jury does not have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from her subpoena, Ms. Pearson?
She may.
Without objection.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
The people call James Merciers. Stand up there.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. You solemnly swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I swear. All right, please be seated. Please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first, middle, and last names.
James Elias Merciades, JamesEliasMyrsiades.
All right, thank you. Please move the microphone so that it's closer to your mouth. Make sure we can all hear you. Thank you. Ms. Pearson, you may proceed.
Mr. Merciades, in July of 2012, where did you work?
I worked for the University of Colorado Denver Police Department.
What did you do for them?
I was the patrol division commander.
How long had you been at CU?
At that time, about 15 years.
I want to turn your attention to Monday, July 23rd of 2012. Do you recall being asked to search for a package on that day?
Yes.
Who was the package addressed to that you were trying to locate?
It was addressed to Dr. Lynn Fenton.
Is that a person that you were familiar with at the University of Colorado?
Yes.
Was she one of the psychiatrists who worked there?
Yes.
How did you begin the process of trying to find this package? Where did you search?
We conducted a search in the university facilities building, the postal room.
Who did you have do the search?
Facilities postal employees.
Did you tell them what kind of package to search for?
Yes.
How long did the search take to complete?
Approximately 30 minutes.
What kind of areas did people have to search in order to find this?
There were bins on the floor where all the incoming mail comes. They were searching through those bins.
Had the mail for Monday arrived at the point that you began the search?
I don't recall. I'm not really sure.
Did you normally spend too much time in the mail room?
No.
Now, some of us have an image of what mail rooms at post offices look like. Did the mail room at CU look like that? Were there a lot of containers full of mail?
Yes.
Do you recall ultimately a package being handed to you?
Yes.
Do you know who handed it to you?
Yes, Miss Munis.
Was she somebody who worked at the mailroom?
She was a facilities postal employee.
What did the package look like?
It was probably about an 8 by 11 bubble envelope.
What color was it?
I don't recall. I believe white.
Who was it addressed to?
It was addressed to Dr. Lynn Fenton.
When the package was handed to you, what did you do with it?
I looked at it, recognized, looked at the names on it. I immediately set it down, and I called it out on the radio, and then I called for an evacuation of the building.
And why did you do that?
For safety measures. The bomb squad was on scene, and that was just a procedure at that time.
Did bomb squad arrive to deal with the package?
Yes.
Were you present while they were looking at it?
I was not. I had left the room, and they came in with their robot and equipment. And
Do you have any idea how long it took for the bomb squad to complete their viewing of the package?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
I don't recall exactly how long it was.
Once the bomb squad had finished with the package, what happened to it next?
Once they had finished, we came back into the area, and there were discussions about what was going to happen with the envelope. At some point, Chief Abraham.
And I don't want you to talk
Okay.
about what anybody told you.
All
So, did you end up staying with the package during some of the day?
Yes,
Was there anybody else there with you?
yes.
And who were the people who were with you?
While I was there was Chief Doug Abraham, Detective Alton Reed, Doug Hayes.
Some CU police officers as
And
well
some
as
Aurora,
as
yes.
well as Aurora police officers?
Yes.
When you left the package, who was there at the time that you left?
When I left, Officer Dale McCauley and Detective Reed were there.
And was Officer McCauley a CU police officer?
Yes,
And Detective Reed, did he work for the Aurora Police Department?
yes.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions.
Any cross-examination, Mr. King?
Judge, I just have a couple questions. May I do it from here?
You may.
Sir, when you were asked to look for this package, your instructions were to look for any packages addressed to Dr. Lynn Fenton, Dr. Robert Feinstein, or any packages sent by a Mr. James Holmes. Is that right?
Yes,
When you said the bomb squad had already been deployed to that area. Is that right?
yes, they were on campus for another package.
Okay. And you said that after you located the package, you set it down and you sent out a radio call. Is that right?
Yes,
And the protocol at that point in time would be to have the bomb squad check out the package to make sure it was safe before anybody opened it up or did anything with it. Is that right?
yes,
And when the bomb squad had done their procedures, they determined that the package was safe, and it was then that you all had the discussion about what you were going to do with it. Is that right?
yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
All right, is there any redirect, Ms. Pearson?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
He may.
Without objection.
All right, thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
Brooke Cowden.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
My name is Brooke Channing Cowden, Brooke, Channing,
N-N-I-N-G, Cowden, C-O-W-D-E-N.
Ms. Tisch-McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Hi.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that go into the early morning of July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Could you please tell the jury about what you remember about the day of July 19th prior to going to the movie theater that day?
The day of July 19th, we were at my dad's house. My parents were divorced for a long time, but we saw them both regularly.
Can you tell the jury your mom and your dad's name?
My mom's name is Melissa Cowden, M-E-L-I-S-A, Cowden, C-O-W-D-E-N, and my dad is Gordon Cowden.
Okay. Could you spell Gordon for us?
G-O-R-D-O-N, Ware, W-A-R-E, Cowden, C-O-W-D-E-N.
Right. Can you continue telling the jury about what you remember about that day?
So my little sister, Sierra Cowden, C-I-E-R-R-A, and I were just at my dad's house. I was baking all day long for this tea party that my older sister, Kristen, K-R-I-S-T-I-A-N, we were going to have the following day. We had peanut butter blondies with strudel that my dad and I ate that strudel out of a Tupperware. And then Christian left at some point in the day to go to Fort Collins to see The Dark Knight Rises premiere there with friends. Later in the day we went, my dad wanted to go running, so I elected that we go to Utah Park, and we did so. And
Judge, I'm going to interject an objection to 401 and 403.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Right. At some point in time, did you decide to go to the movie theater that day?
yeah, so we were going to go see Moonrise Kingdom somewhere around 7 o'clock, but we missed that because my dad and I were running, so we had gone to the Aurora Library and then to the theater to check how crowded it was around sometime after 8 o'clock. And when we walked in, it wasn't too busy. There was just a group of like teenagers sitting out. So we approached and bought tickets.
What did you do after you bought tickets for the theater?
After we bought tickets, we went back to our house where we just kind of ate our own thing for dinner, and I sat at my dad's desk and looked out at him on the front porch.
Excuse me, objection, 401, 403.
Sustained.
What time did you go back to the theater that night?
Later than I had wanted. I wanted to go early to try to get seats, so we left about 10:45 or so.
What did you do when you got to the movie theater that night, the second time?
We parked with a theater behind you and Aurora Mall in front of you, like left diagonal of the entrance, and went on in, and it was still not crowded, so we went through the line poles and went to a young guy who took our tickets, and my dad had to look in his pocket for them and then pulled out his wallet that had his...
Objection, Your Honor, 401, 403.
I'm going to sustain it. Sustain.
What theater number did you go into that night?
I don't know how much attention I was paying to the theater number, but it was 9, and I was just going like by directions or the sign above the theater door.
How'd you go find your seats in the theater that night?
We came in through the left wing, if you're looking at the like theater screen, and it was about halfway full. And we just typically like sat in stadium seating, so we just started rising up the steps and just picked a row. My dad wanted to sit closer to the aisle.
Objection, Your Honor, 401, 403.
Overruled.
My dad wanted to sit closer to the aisle seat, but in that same row, I said it's going to fill up anyway, so I moved him just a couple seats down. Moved all of us down.
What do you recall doing while you were waiting for the movie to begin that night?
People watching and eavesdropping on the conversation in front of us. I was watching a woman come in, or a young teenage girl come in like a Catwoman costume, and watched a theater employee come in and kind of scan us, and then a woman with a baby in a blanket came in, and I gave some remark to my little sister. And at some point my dad asked me if I had my phone, and I said no, and asked why. And he said just to text hi. What
happened during the movie that night?
After the previews and everything, there were a couple scenes, and then Catwoman was stealing pearls, and I think the next scene was just about to begin at that point.
What do you recall happening during that scene in the movie?
During the Catwoman scene?
In your theater? What happened in your theater during that scene in the movie?
In the right-hand corner, there just kind of appeared a figure, and it seemed like he was in the doorway because there was just light all behind him. And it was a very broad, large figure completely in black, and it seemed like his limbs and his chest and that everything was almost blocky or like just broadened a lot.
What do you recall after seeing that figure?
A canister of gas was thrown like towards the left, like exit behind us, kind of in that direction. And its like tail of gas was lit up by the theater screen.
What do you recall happening after that?
There was a very loud bang, and I don't remember it all getting onto the floor, but I was laying with my stomach flat, with my right arm close to my body and my left around my head. And my head was closer to the left aisle and my feet were kind of behind.
What do you remember while you were on the ground happening in the theater?
Listening to these loud bangs, and that's not a good enough description for the force and the volume that they were. And at one point, I turned my head up to see these like sparks kind of towards the projector, but above my head, and they were like red or orange. And I started to feel like a stinging or something like obstructing my airway. And I was wearing a black and gold scarf, so I put it to my mouth.
What do you recall after putting that scarf to your mouth?
After that, I just started getting this very calm, kind of serene sensation that I was going to die.
Your Honor, 403, 401.
Overruled?
Sorry, could you say that last part again?
Yeah, I was lying there, just everything was still going on, but within my own body I felt like it was very calm. If I was going to shut down, I was going to be done, and I was under the impression that I would be shot through my chest. I didn't.
Same objection, Your Honor, 401, 403.
All right, move on, Mr. Schmagwine.
How old were you that night in the theater on July 19th, 2012?
I was 17 years old.
How old was your sister, Sierra?
Sierra was 16.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 4716.
Yes?
Ms. Cowden, do you recognize the person in that photograph?
That is my dad.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move to admit People's Exhibit 4716.
Any objection?
No objection.
With that objection, it is admitted.
If I could please have 4716. Is this a picture of your dad?
I think I may have actually taken this on a hike that my sisters and my dad and I went on.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Cowden, you were telling the jury about how you were on the ground, what you were hearing. What do you remember after that?
Still lying on the ground while I was expecting either the gas or a bullet, my attention turned to my dad saying, "I love you."
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay, 401, 403.
Sustained.
And then there
Move
was
to
a
strike, excuse
pause
me.
and bullet. Sorry.
I sustain the objection. I've given the jury an instruction about my rulings when I sustain objections. The jury understands that. Move on.
After you remember hearing that, what do you remember happening next in the theater?
I was saying Dad, but I stood up because there was a pause in the bullets, and just moving towards that left aisle and abandoning my dad, just leaving him and going to the stairs.
What do you recall doing when you went down the stairs?
Down the stairs, Sierra was close to my left at this point, and we started down. And the stairs are longer, wider ones, and then shorter. And upon one of these longer ones was what I thought a female body, like her torso, coming out from the aisle, and her face was bloodied, and I couldn't really distinguish any of her features because she was so bloody.
Object at this point to 401 and 403.
Overruled.
You may continue, Ms. Cowden.
So this woman was on the stairs and Sierra tried to pause. She didn't want to step over her and I just commanded her to go. And so we kept going down and around the left exit and just got to the lobby where I realized she wasn't right next to me and I looked back and called her name. And then we bolted through doors that were being held open at that point.
Your Honor, at this time, with the court's permission, I would ask Ms. Cowden to be able to approach the 3D model.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Ms. Cowden, I'm going to ask you to grab a cordless microphone that should be up on the witness stand. All right, Ms. Cowden, is that on? If you could please show the jury where you and your sister Sierra and your dad were seated that evening.
So we were approximately along like these seats.
And could you show them in which seat you were, in which seat Sierra was, and which seat your dad was?
So I was closest to the center, and then to my left was Sierra, and to her left was my dad.
Right, and where was it that you saw that figure first come into the theater that evening?
It was down, like right along this exit area.
All right, and where was it that you saw that canister go across the theater?
Like coming along this direction, probably towards like these seats.
All right, and where did you see flashes while you were in the theater?
We were sitting back here, it was just like right over my head, a little maybe behind me, but close to like straight over my head.
Can you show the jury how you got out of the theater that evening?
We came down these stairs, past the woman, and then out this like left exit the way we had come.
Thank you very much. You can take your seat again. What happened when you got out into the parking lot?
Out into the parking lot, Sierra and I just kept running in that like left diagonal to, I think it was like a silver compact car, where we hid behind or like to the opposite side of it because we were under the impression that someone may just come out and start shooting there.
Do you recall anything else about the parking lot that evening?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance, 403.
Would counsel please approach? The objection is sustained. You may proceed.
Were you transported to Gateway High School early that morning of July 20th, 2012?
We were transported because I couldn't contact my mother or father.
Objection, Your Honor, 401, 403.
Overruled.
Some people had started taking their cars at that point, but there were 2 RTDs at least, and one was for missing people. So we got on that one and went down to Gateway, where I still didn't know if a shooter was loose and if I'd be
Objection, Your
shot.
Honor, 401, 403.
Sustained.
What happened when you got to Gateway High School?
We got to Gateway High School, we stayed on the bus temporarily, and then like everybody needed to use the restroom. Someone mentioned that the tear gas may...
Your Honor, hearsay, 401, 403.
Sustained.
At some point, did you get interviewed at Gateway High School?
Yeah, after sitting in the gym for a while with Sierra, we were both taken back to the front of the school where they took our information and assigned us a number, and it was 21 for me, and they took our pictures, and I just watched Sierra walk all the way down the hall away from me.
What time did you leave Gateway High School that morning?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
After like hours of sitting, making unanswered phone calls.
Your Honor, 401, 403.
Sustained, and it's non-responsive. I think the question was, at what time did you leave Gateway High School that morning? And I think it's been, the first part of the answer was responsive after like hours of sitting, and then the rest of it was non-responsive. So the rest of it is stricken as non-responsive. Go ahead.
Do you recall watching the sunrise that morning?
Yes, over my dad's neighborhood.
Excuse me, relevance in 403.
Overruled?
What time did you leave Gateway High School?
It was around 10 or 10:30 that we would be driven in a police car back to my dad's house.
What happened when you got to your dad's house?
Objection to relevance.
Mrs. McGuire?
You know, she's talking about how she learns about her father.
Overruled.
What happened when you got back to your house?
They brought a police officer to try to pick the lock in. My dad still had the keys, so I had to break in through our window we had a victim's advocate named Wanda with us at that point, and a police officer dropped us off. And I received phone calls from my brother and aunt and had to...
Objection, Your Honor, 401, 403.
Sustained.
Ms. Cowden, were you ever notified of your father's death?
The hospital list kept coming back without his name, and then...
Your Honor, I'm sorry, 401, 403.
It's not non-responsive, so the objection is sustained. Ask your question again.
Were you ever notified of your father's death?
A victim's advocate was assigned to our family who would tell us. I was in my mother's bedroom at this point. I was not awake when they came at 10:30, I think, on July 20th. I don't remember ever specifically being sat down and told that he's dead.
But you've never seen your father again since
No.
the night of July 20th, 2012?
No, ma'am.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, is there any cross-examination?
No, there's not.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions. May this witness be released from our subpoena?
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
The people called Denzel Lucens.
Good morning. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please be seated. Please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first, middle, and last names.
Denzel Clay Lucens, Denzel Clay Lukens.
All right, Ms. Pearson, you may proceed.
Mr. Lucens, who were you working for in July of 2012?
The Adams County Sheriff's Office,
How long had you worked there at that point?
27 years.
What were your duties?
I was Deputy Sheriff assigned to the K-9 unit in the bomb squad.
On July 23rd of 2012, a Monday, were you asked to respond to the CU Medical Center, the Anschutz campus?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And for what kind of duties?
For the bomb squad on a request to assist with the suspicious package.
Did you do that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Do you recall what time you got to the medical center?
It was it was about 7:30 in the morning.
What were you asked to do when you got there?
First was asked to investigate a Federal Express envelope at outside a door of an office. We went.
And whose office was that?
It was one of the psychiatrists at the hospital.
Do you recall her name?
No, I do not.
Was it Lynn Fenton?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, that package that you first were asked to look at, did that end up having anything to do with what you were ultimately asked to search for?
No, ma'am, it did not.
Were you later asked to look for another package?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that package also directed to Lynn Fenton?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Did you have information about who it had been sent by?
Yes, ma'am.
Who had it been sent by?
James Holmes.
I'm sorry.
James Holmes.
Were you notified at some point that a package had in fact been located that was addressed to Lynn Fenton and was from James Holmes?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what time that was?
We were advised about it around noon.
What did you do then?
We loaded our equipment from the first scene, drove just down the campus to the mailroom, and got briefed and started setting up our equipment for the second package.
When you say setting up your equipment, what do you mean?
Judge, I'm going to object to the relevance of this testimony. This package didn't contain any hazardous material. I just don't see the relevance.
The objection is overruled. Sir, I'm going to ask you to get the microphone closer to you so that we can all hear you. Thank you. Go ahead.
When you talk about setting up your equipment, what do you mean?
We have a large bomb vehicle that has all of our robot X-ray equipment, any other equipment we'd need. We have protective equipment that we wear. So we have to stage our area, secure our perimeter, and make the area safe for us before we begin our examination of the suspicious item.
Why did you feel that was necessary for this package?
There was concerns from the University Police calling us that it could be a hazardous package.
So did you see the package initially?
No, I did not.
When did you first see it?
The first time I saw the package was on the monitor from a robot. My partner, Sergeant James Gerderman, operated the robot to recover the package.
So let's take a step back. So where was the package at the time that you began your looking at it or searching it to see if in fact it was hazardous?
There's a package back in the sorting room. We were told where the package was. We staged an area in an open area where we're going to remove the package with the robot, set the package up into this open space area where we could have more room to work with it. So my job was to, once the package was brought in, to physically go down and inspect the package.
How did you go about doing that?
First thing we did is we pre-staged a X-ray film. The package was put in place by the robot. Once it was put in place, I had to go down and manually operate the X-ray. Once the X-ray goes off, then I can safely go back in, remove the X-ray film, and then we examine the X-ray film.
When you examined the X-ray film, what did you see?
We saw spiral and pages. We saw nothing else. It's not a clear picture, but it's a black and white haze, and you can see that there was a metal spiral and then the size of a notebook.
So based on what you observed there, were you able to conclude that there wasn't anything hazardous about this package?
We conclude that there was no explosive hazard. There was no batteries, no wires, no ignition source, but we weren't sure of any other bio or chemical hazards.
So what did you do to make sure that it was safe with regard to those things?
The first thing we did was the robot was equipped with sensors for radiation, so we knew it wasn't any kind of a nuclear hazard or anything like that. We had a vent hood that was supplied by the FBI. The vent hood has gloves that you can put your hand into, examine to contain anything that might escape when you open the package.
How big is this vent hood that we're talking about?
Oh, it's about 24 inches square on the bottom. It comes up kind of like a tent. It has Ziploc enclosures, so you can Ziploc your item in it. And it has rubber gloves you can reach in and manipulate the items that you're inspecting.
Is it an opaque or clear?
It's clear.
Can you see through it?
You can. It's like looking through a clear plastic bag.
And you said now you could put your hands into it and manipulate an item that's inside of it?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you in fact do that?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you do to the package once it was inside the vent hood?
We pre-staged in the vent hood the tools I'd need. We had a pair of scissors. We had evidence envelopes, some wipes with bleach. Once I placed the package into the hood, sealed it up, I used a pair of scissors to open the envelope up. Once I removed the item out of the envelope, I could see that there was some burnt edges inside the book, and there was some currency that was slipping out that you could see was burnt around the edges. I inspected around the edges of the paper, and I could see that none of the paper was burnt. It was just the currency that was burnt. In the hood, we also had sensors that was doing air samples for any kind of bio or chemical reaction, and I could see that those readings were negative, were zero. So I went ahead and put the items into the evidence bag. sealed up the evidence bag, wiped that with bleach, put it into a second evidence bag, and sealed that up.
The evidence bags that you're talking about, what do they look like?
They're basically a Ziploc baggie. They secure the package and contain anything that might be put in them.
Now, you said that you'd seen some burned currency
Yes, ma'am.
coming out of it. What did you do with that?
I has it all complete inside the book, put it into the evidence bag with the packaging.
Was everything still contained within the original packaging?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what the original packaging of what the notebook looked like? What the original packaging of
The
it
outside
was?
packaging was like a bubble wrap mail pack.
So you put everything back in the bubble wrap, put the bubble wrap in plastic, and seal it up.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do with it once you'd sealed it up?
I left it in the vent hood. Communicated through the robot, was there anything else they wanted to have done? And I removed my hands from the gloves and left the scene there.
Was there anybody else inside the room where the vent hood was at the point when you left?
No. No, I was all by myself for until after it was declared clear, I was by myself.
Who did you leave the package with when you finished with it?
Once we turned the scene over to the campus police, and there was some uniformed officers. I'm not sure who physically took control of that scene, but we turned it over to the campus police.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Is there any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
He may.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
William Davitch, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sir, good morning. Now have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath. You solemnly swear or affirm in a penalty of law that the testimony about you will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first, middle, and last names?
William J. Davitch, William Davitch.
And you said your middle initial is J?
J.
All right. Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Thank you. Sir, can you please tell us what you do for a living?
I'm an FBI agent.
What's your duty assignment?
I am assigned to
Hey, can we just hold it for 1 second? I'm removing this box.
In the meantime, sir, can you please move the microphone closer to you so that everyone can hear you? Thank you.
What's your duty assignment?
I'm assigned to the counter IED section in the Critical Incident Response Group in Quantico, Virginia.
Did you have any involvement in searching the defendant's apartment at 1690 Parish Street, number 10, on July 21st, 2012?
I did.
Can you please explain what your involvement was in that procedure?
I was responsible primarily for searching the kitchen area of the apartment.
Did that also include, at least to some extent, the area associated with that kitchen table?
Yes, it did. The area extending from the kitchen towards the wall where the small table was located.
Did that area that you searched get designated a letter for a room?
I believe it was B.
And why do you designate different rooms, A, B, and so forth?
So you can associate a piece of evidence with a particular location, and if there's multiple rooms, each of those rooms are assigned a number or letter.
If I showed you items of evidence, would you be able to tell me whether these were items that you in fact collected from the defendant's apartment?
I can.
And, Your Honor, I'm going to ask to show some photographs as I do this to put where these are located in context.
All right.
First one I want to show you is what I've marked as People's Exhibit 893. Do you recognize what's been marked as Exhibit 893?
I do.
And I believe there's also an 894 in there, or is that all 893? I'm sorry.
It appears to all be 893.
What is that?
It is an apartment rental agreement for 2012, 2011, and then associated lead-based paint disclosures for the rental, a document from the rental company, and then small receipts for what looks like $5.99 for rent for that apartment.
And is there also a business card?
And there's also a business card for Holly Realty and Management, LLC.
We could please put up Exhibit 2499, which has been admitted. What are we looking at there?
The same document.
And is that showing where you located it in the apartment?
Yes, it's in a drawer in the kitchen.
Your Honor, a move to admit 893.
Is there any objection to P-TR-893?
May we approach briefly?
Yes. All right, Mr. Orman, you may proceed as you and Ms. Spengler agreed at the bench.
Thank you. Can we please put up 2499 again? All right, now, we're looking at the paperwork there. Would you, maybe a little bit creased or something, but would you say it's clean?
Yes,
And when you look at the paperwork there, does it appear to have been processed for fingerprints?
it does.
And that makes it sort of a little bit dirty?
It does.
But this is the way in the photograph it appeared at the time you collected it?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I would renew my motion to admit 893.
With that additional record, is there any objection?
There's not.
Without objection, P-TR-893 is admitted.
If we could please put up a photo, Exhibit 2381, which has been admitted. I'm showing you what's had been admitted as Exhibit 2381. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that a photograph of?
It's a photograph of the trash can located next to the refrigerator in the kitchen.
Did you search that trash can?
I did.
And if I showed you items, would you be able to tell me whether they were items collected from the trash can?
Yes.
I'm going to approach, Your Honor, after I show to counsel, with what has been marked as People's Exhibits 842, 843, 844, 845, 846, 848, and 849. It does not include 847. Please take a look at those, and when you're done, tell me whether or not those are all items that you collected from the trash.
They are.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-842 through 846 inclusive and P-TR-848 and 849 are admitted.
Now, we're going to get the jury a chance to handle those in a little bit, but with this picture up here, and can we zoom in on just the trash can a little bit there, please? I just want to ask you what each of those individual items are. So if we could go to 841, what is that? And you know what, why don't you just take those individual plastic things off of that thing, just so you can handle them.
Each one
Yeah,
separately?
yeah. So what is 841?
841 is 2 containers of Alliant powder, Reloader 15 smokeless rifle powder.
And you say containers, are those empty containers?
Yes.
And then 842, what is that?
842 are 2 containers of Hodgdon HS6 pistol shotgun powder containers.
Again, empty?
Yes.
Let me interject for just a moment, Mr. Orman. Initially, you said you were approaching with P-TR-842 through 846, and then 848 and 849. I did not hear 841.
That was my mistake, Your Honor. Include 841 and move to admit.
All right, is there any objection to P-TR-841?
No objection.
All right, without objection, that is admitted.
So what is 843?
843 is the Science Company container indicating ammonium chloride.
844?
.844 are 3 caps from some type of container.
845?
Are bags and labels for quick fuse fireworks.
846?
Bags and labels for safety fuse.
848? And that one you may have to look at closely.
It is a cardboard piece of paper indicating magnesium ribbon.
Okay. we could please put up photograph 2124. I'm sorry, maybe that's 2424. If I could have a second, Your Honor, my notes are apparently mistaken.
Yes.
Uh, 2453. See in this photograph 3 rolls of tape?
I do.
Did you collect those rolls of tape?
I did.
And I'm going to approach, Your Honor, with what's been marked as 872, 873, and 874. Do you recognize those items?
I do.
And what is that?
One roll of gray Scotch duct tape, one small roll of Scotch tape in its dispenser, and then one roll of blue duct tape.
And are those the items depicted in this photograph that were found on the desk?
Yes.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-A72 through A74 inclusive are admitted. Mr. Orman, let me follow up on a previous exhibit, make sure that that my notes are accurate.
Yep.
You did move to admit P-TR-A49, correct? That was within the group?
It was, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
I just
make
didn't
sure.
ask him a specific question
That's
about it.
fine.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's been admitted. And now P-TR-A72 through A74 inclusive are admitted.
If we could please put up photograph 2467. What is this depicting? And then 2468.
It's the floor area near the dining room table, and it shows a dust mask, a wire, a pair of safety glasses, and some black plastic.
So a dust mask and a pair of safety glasses, was that it next to the desk or the table?
Yes,
Did you collect those?
I did.
Your Honor, I'm going to approach with what has been marked for identification as 852.
Okay?
Is that in fact the dust mask and safety goggles that you collected from the defendant's apartment?
It is.
Your Honor, move to admit.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-852 is admitted.
If we could please put up Exhibit 2440. What are we looking at there? And 2441.
A drawer in the kitchen with some files and some other kitchen utensils.
Did you collect those files?
I did.
And I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 839. I've shown it to counsel. Are those the files you collected?
Yes, they are.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-839 is admitted.
I want to go back to the table now, and I want to show you, let's take a look at a photograph, 2464, please. And what is that?
A can of black spray paint.
Did you collect that?
I did.
And if we could also take a look at 2466, please. What are we looking at there?
A bag with some small metal clips
And where was that?
on the small dining room table next to the tape.
And in fact, when we see those things up in the upper left-hand corner, is that the duct tape and that sort of aqua tape?
That's correct.
I'm going to approach, Your Honor, with 850 and 851.
All right.
We could take that down. What is 850?
850 is a can of flat black Krylon spray paint.
Move to admit 850, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
P-TR-850 is admitted.
And what is 851?
The small metal clips, 3 of them.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-851 is admitted.
And let's go back to the table now. If we can please put up 2477. And 2478. And 2479. And 2480. So these are photographs of a bunch of little plastic things that are sort of circular with a line off of them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you collect those?
I did.
I'm going to approach with 854, Your Honor.
All right.
Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
They are the same black plastic items depicted in the photo.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-854 is admitted.
Sticking with the table, if we could please put up photograph 2443, please. Now, this sort of gives us a little bit of an overview of the table. Is that the tape you can see in the middle there?
Yes, it is.
Now, off to the left is something that looks like a crowbar, but on top of that is these little tubes wrapped in string. Do you see that?
I do.
Did you collect those?
I did.
Now, was that the state it was in the time you collected it, all wrapped in string in kind of a hexagonal or pattern?
Yes.
I'm going to approach with People's Exhibit 895, Your Honor.
Yes.
Taking a look at that, is that the same item except taken apart?
Yes, it is.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-895 is admitted.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I just want to make sure I get the right photograph up.
Okay.
Behind the table, when you collected evidence, did you observe something that looked like a destroyed electronic item?
I did.
And what did that appear to you to be when you collected it?
It was the remains of a electronic firing system.
we could please put up 2386. And is that part of it right there, 2386?
It is.
And did you actually collect that item?
Yes.
I'm going to approach, Your Honor, with People's Exhibit 888.
Okay.
And what is that we're looking at?
That's the top of the firing system box.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-888 is admitted.
Did you also collect other portions of that device that appear to essentially have been parts of it that got blown off?
Yes.
And where were those located?
They were also in the kitchen area.
I'm going to approach, Your Honor, with People's Exhibit 889, 891, 890. Are 890, 891, and I'm sorry, 888, 890, 889, and 890, the other portions of that device?
Mr. Orman, 888 has been admitted. I think you meant 889, 890, and 891.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. That is correct. Are those all portions of that device?
They are.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-889 through 891 inclusive are admitted.
I want to go back to the table and some items from the table. And if we could put up, please, 2458. And what are we looking at there?
Some lids and a lighter, a pair of tools in the back.
And then if we go to 2455, get a broader view. All right, do you see on this table here, that lighter, some other items, including off to the left, what appear to be some electrical motors, some items around that tool with the yellow handles, and similar items?
I do. And a file on the left.
Did you?
And a file to the left.
All right, did you collect that lighter?
I did.
Did you collect the see with the tool there's like a wire with some alligator clips? Did you collect that?
Yes.
Did you collect those electric motors?
I believe so.
And did you collect the crowbar that you can see in the other photograph?
I did.
And in fact other tools as well, including those yellow snips?
I did.
I'm going to approach, Your Honor, with People's Exhibit 855, 856, 857, and 858.
Okay.
Can you please take a look at 855 and tell me what that is?
It is a Ozark Trail lighter.
Is that the lighter that you collected from the table?
It is.
856, what is that?
It is the wire with alligator clips attached.
Collect that from the table?
I did.
857.
The two electric motors.
And 858.
Is the crowbar.
And does this also include a file, needle nose pliers, and the shears?
It does.
All collected from the table?
Yes.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, P-TR-855 through 858 inclusive are admitted.
I want to ask you about collecting some items that were identified as launch control refill packs. Did you see anything that looked like that?
I did.
If we could please put up 2383. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
And then 2384. Is that just the same thing with an evidence placard there?
That's correct.
Did you collect those items?
I did.
Your Honor, I'm going to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 882, 883, 884, 885, 886, and 887. And also, I want to ask you before I do that, do you see sort of up right underneath the plan a little control, a little remote control? If we could zoom in, there's that, the higher launch controller, and then there's a small device to the left of it. Yeah, that'll work. See what I'm talking about?
Yes,
in the
I
middle
do.
there. Did you collect that as well?
Gray and black, yes.
Are those the launch control refill packs and that remote control that you collected?
They are.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-882 through 887 inclusive are admitted.
We're going to go off the table, but it's on sort of a similar type of object I want to ask you about. If we could please put up photograph 2444, please. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit with the next photograph, or at least show a placard, 2445. Do you see that with the 41 there?
I do.
And then 2447. Is that yet a closer photograph of that?
It is.
What is that?
It is a box that contained a bunch of igniters.
For some type of fireworks system?
Yes.
I'm going to approach, Your Honor, with 881.
All right.
Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
It is a box of Talon Premium electric igniters.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-881 is admitted.
I've got about 5 or 6 more of these, Your Honor, and I think that shouldn't take more than a few more minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to move to the kitchen now, the kitchen area. Specifically, I want to ask you about the stove. Did you collect items from around the stove?
I did.
And if we could please take a look at 2455, please. All right, 24. Actually, if we look at 2436, just to get an overview. And then that's part of the kitchen with the sink and whatnot?
It is.
And then 2426. Does that show the stove?
It does.
Now, did you collect, there's 2 pans there. One of them appears to have a couple of paintbrushes with it, and the other is a pan to the right. Did you collect those pans?
I did.
Your Honor, I'm going to approach the witness with People's Exhibits 859, 860, and 861.
Okay.
With that picture up there, let me ask you about 859. Is the item that is depicted on the right-hand side, that right-hand pan, 859?
Yes, it is.
Move to admit 859, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
With that objection, it is admitted.
Let's talk about 860 and 861. Did you collect that other pan with those brushes in it?
I did.
And would that be 861?
The pan is 861 and the two brushes are 860.
Move to admit 860 and 861.
Any objection?
No objection.
With that objection, P-DR-860 and 861 are admitted.
Now, you can see in the pan there, in the photograph, if we can actually zoom in on that left-hand pan, please. There's some debris. Do you see the debris?
I do.
And if you can take a look at the bag, that plastic bag that 861 is in, can you see any of that debris associated with the pan still?
A little bit of it, yes.
What does it appear to you to be?
Well, the material on the end of the brushes looks like it's blue.
Actually, I'm just asking you at this point what the white sort of material appears to you to be.
It's like a waxy, glue-like material, I guess.
Looks similar to styrofoam?
Yeah.
I'd like to, if we could please put up $24.38. What are we looking at there?
Picture of bags inside one of the kitchen cupboards.
And if we could also take a look at 2439, please. And is that just sort of a kind of a blurry photograph of what those bags were?
Yeah, I believe they contained little pieces of bar stock metal.
And did they have a label on them?
I don't recall if they did.
Okay. If I could show you what I've marked as People's Exhibit 868. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what is that?
They are those bags with a piece of metal in them and then a small label on it that says the science company and a price. And
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, without objection, P-DR-868 is admitted.
Now, can you read what the label is? You said the science company, what it actually is for?
It says electrode zinc flat.
Now, is there, are you familiar with the way that the lab will assign lab numbers to various items?
I am.
With a Q number?
I am.
And what, is there a Q number associated with that?
The top bag is Q84.2.
Did you collect any additional electrodes that would have been assigned potentially the lab number Q82?
There are additional pieces in this bag of metal behind the top bag that's inside of it.
I'm going to approach you with People's Exhibit 862. Would these be additional electrodes collected from the defendant's apartment?
Yes, they are, and it's marked Q82.1, 2, and 3.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-862 is admitted.
And one last one that I have here is People's Exhibit 875. And if we could please put up 2431 and 2434. What are we looking at there?
A lid with a spoon and what appears to be the same type of metal pieces of bar stock.
I'm going to approach with 875.
All right.
Is that the same spoon and the lid and the metal?
It is.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-875 is admitted.
Now, if we could zoom in on the spoon just for a second. And there's sort of a discoloration on the metallic portion of the spoon part. Do you see that?
I do.
And is that also visible in the item that you have there?
It is.
And is it similar, the way it looks?
Similar.
And the metallic bars, they're not really, I mean, there's sort of a discoloration on them. Is that still there?
It is. They appear to be rusted. Or
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
I don't have anything further. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Do you have any cross-examination? All right. And the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
You can, Your Honor, and I'd ask to publish.
All right, any objection to him being released from his subpoena?
No objection.
All right, the request to publish is granted, but we will do that after the break. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, members of the jury, it's about 10:21. Let's go ahead and take our morning break at this time. Please keep in mind all my advisements during the break. I'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Thank you. The record should reflect the jury has now exited the courtroom. All right, folks, let's go on break. I'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Thank you. The court will be in recess.
Please rise.